Hey, welcome to class, and welcome back to the Nonprofit Leadership Studio. Bob Sanborn here. So I know this is the first class of the semester for you guys, and I'm excited for that. And then, of course, this will live on YouTube for many people who are catching up on leadership. So today we have Antoine Plant, and Antoine is for your average person, just an orchestra conductor, right? But you conduct one of the great orchestras in our country, the Mercury Orchestra, which is based here in Houston. And welcome, Antoine, to the studio.
Thank you.
And I go back many years with you, Antoine. And how long have you been running? How long have you been the artistic director? And you founded Mercury.
Yeah, so I founded Mercury 16 years ago.
Wow.
Along with friends.
Yeah.
Back then, and yeah, so started from just an idea of putting some concerts together, being off of a master's in music at Rice. And
Did you do it right after your master's degree?
Yes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I did several things right after my master's degrees, kind of as I was entering the workforce.
Yeah.
But I saw Houston as a great place to live, and also a place that had opportunity for my ambitions in a way. It was a place that had space in the art. I felt to support what I wanted to do, and so as I say, I mean, I started different little things. I have a little entrepreneur.
You're
fiber.
like a musical entrepreneur, right?
In me. But Mercury did take early on much better than everything else that I had kind of.
But I think Mercury is sort of a nice example for us to talk about, because I was involved for a little while with Mercury, and it seemed like as you guys were founding it, and I was there at the beginning, you were doing everything right, So, and people often think about starting their own nonprofit, and in a sense, that's exactly what you guys did. You started your own nonprofit, an artistic nonprofit, which is not an easy thing to do, and you're quite successful with it. I'll start with a question that I ask everyone first. If you're writing the Antoine Plant book on leadership, what are some of the chapters for you?
Well, maybe we can take this angle of kind of the funding angle. What I think may have made this work for us. And I would say that one of the first great seed that we have is that we had a small team of really dedicated people. So there were four of us that were that founded the organization.
Yeah.
And friends, musician. We also had a lawyer. So kind of somebody on the business, more of the business side. And my concertmaster is still with me right now. And his wife is a soprano. She doesn't sing for us anymore, but she still is really much involved. And really, four strong personality, charismatic people that we were able to bring forward. So I guess that perhaps the first chapter is a collaboration.
Yeah.
And it actually would come back through the history of Mercury. A lot of it has to do with collaboration. It's really one of our core value and of my core value of our way of doing business, from music to managing the orchestra, to managing the board and so on. So collaboration would definitely be one of the big one, and with that comes with the chapter of perhaps communication.
Yeah. Talk about that a little bit. I
seek advice a lot, and you know that because when you were involved with Mercury, I was on the phone with you regularly, a lot, and I loved what you had to say and learned a lot from what you had to say.
You were the only one who ever loved that. So thank you. So,
but that's really something that I think really helped Mercury, is that I'm seeking advice, I'm listening, and I'm also informing everybody that is involved with Mercury as much as I can. I don't keep secrets, and I don't. I try not. Sometimes it's not as easy as to say it, but I try not to. I try to have an open book as much as possible.
Two great chapters, though. Collaboration, communication are key things. Let's take a step back and your own background, Antoine. Obviously, is this a Texas accent that I hear? Or, I mean, where are you from?
Well, I grew up in Montreal, in
Yeah.
Quebec. And
So it's a French-Canadian accent.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
So I grew up speaking French, and I didn't speak English really well until I came to Rice, and I barely passed the TOEFL, and so I didn't have to do the English classes. But I have to say that it was hard at first.
Yeah. And in your family, do you guys speak English now or French at home?
Yeah, no, we only speak French. Yeah.
Oh, you speak French at home.
Yeah,
wow,
yeah, yeah.
wow.
No, yeah, and depending of there's 4 of us, and some of my siblings have different level of English, but
Yeah, yeah.
But in Montreal, you
Always
get around
French.
in French.
Now, I
so-
meant now that you have a family here in Houston, you speak French to that family as well? Or?
Yes.
Oh, you do. So
Yeah.
you
So
still
my kids are bilingual.
Yeah, yeah. Excellent. Very good.
But yeah, so I grew up in Montreal in a
Yeah.
family of musicians. Both my
Yeah.
parents are musicians, and also in a family of entrepreneurs,
Yeah.
because my dad founded his orchestra just like I did.
Oh, wow.
And so when I grew up, I definitely kind of saw this other side of the musical business. It's not just the musician side. When you're musicians, your concerns are different than when you're the artistic director of an orchestra.
Yeah.
And so I experiment, from being a kid, but still that as I grew up. And also my dad was a musician that specialized in early music. And so he loved the music from the Middle Age and Renaissance era. So, 15th century through 17th century. That was kind of his area of interest.
And a big interest of yours.
And yes.
Yeah.
And so he started collecting instruments, and we have hundreds of early music instruments in our home in Montreal, and that home is where the orchestra would come and rehearse. It was an ensemble, really,
Yeah.
between 5 and 12 people. Perhaps that was the size of the ensembles of that time. But we have, rows of recorders, of cromorns, of harps, of weird percussions, and so he had this this passion for that. But I grew up with that as well, and that's a part of. So I brought part of that to Mercury as well, because Mercury, we specialized in early music too, and we perform that music of the Baroque era, in our case, and classical and romantic, using the old instruments, using the period instruments. So they are violins, but they have different type of strings, the strings that Bach had on his violin.
So you brought this whole experiential background, growing up with this music. You founded this new early music group here in Houston. But I'm sure that when you started off with this new nonprofit, this new artistic nonprofit, a lot of people did not expect something like this to succeed. What was it that made it sort of catch people's eye? And what made it, what do you attribute the success to?
Yeah. My accent.
Well, let's go see the French Canadian, that crazy man, and the hair maybe too, right? Yeah. What do you think, though? What do you think people? Because people fell in love. My time on the board, people were in love with Mercury.
Yeah. So I would think that there's few factors.
Yeah.
I'll keep it simple, but one of the big one is this. Really, is I joke with my accent, but it's my approach to music, and it's the way that I carry it and that I present it. And so I am a musician that really cares about communicating the music. I'm not interested as a musician at playing a string quartet, looking at each other and having this great time for myself. And that's fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that. But I have this pull, this vocation in me to bring what we live when we do that, and to open it to the public, so that the public really have tools to understand that. So one of the big reasons why I think we had success is that I could come up in concerts and I will speak about it, and I'll speak about to the audience about what are we just going to hear, and I do it in a way that that is not snobbish, but in the same time that doesn't. You can still know a lot about classical music, and you don't think it's just baby,
Yeah.
So you try to balance those presentations into making it good for the newcomer and your old-time subscriber. And so part of it is, and kind of going back to communication, but is this real value of communicating the music and finding the music that the audience want, and really is the communication and the dedication to the audience.
Yeah.
I am not just dedicated to the art form, I'm also dedicated to my public, to the people that I serve.
It's interesting that you mention you're not snobbish, right? I mean, because a lot of people think, when they think of classical music, and that's what a lot of people would put this in sort of that group, right? Classical music. And they would think, well, I really don't know classical music. I don't understand it. And you do these concerts at Miller Outdoor Theater, right? Where a lot of people show up because it's a nice evening and it's free music, right? And I remember you talking one time, because there's certain, in classical music, there are certain places where people applaud and other places they don't. But at Miller Outdoor, they just applaud everything. And you sort of like embrace that. Like, this is fantastic. I want them to love this. And does every musician and every music leader sort of feel that same way, do you think? Or do you think there is a level of snobbishness sometimes?
Yes, I think there is. And but I would say that the trend in our industry of classical music is to walk away from that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we may be a little bit ahead of a lot of the trend, but there is definitely, and I think it's a trend to that that is true in other in other industry, in other world. I mean, I'm sure, like when we talk about leadership style, I think evolved quite a bit, and it's much more, perhaps, more inclusive and maybe gentle.
There's not as many autocratic leaders, right? Yeah.
And way to do things right or wrong, or it's
exactly.
So yeah, absolutely. I think that that's the direction that classical music is going forward, because we need to be relevant to our audience now. That's what we are here for. And if people don't feel that they are welcome, and they actually at some point won't come, then we fail.
Yeah, that's right.
It's.
Let's talk about the difference between, and for you, there was one and the same for a while, but an artistic director and an executive director. When you're founding the organization, there's not enough money for both, right? So how did you manage that, where you were the artistic director and the executive director, and then how does it feel as it separates?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing. A lot of people are scared of working with a founder because they have these.
There's lots of stories about founders.
Yeah, exactly. These strong accent and big hair, and and they scare everybody off. And but the for real. I mean, I'm joking, but for real, the founder often has issues of giving power away, or
right. And you have a vision for how you wanted it to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then it kind of messes with that. But we've been lucky at Mercury that actually I love to give power away. Yeah. Maybe it's because I have a lazy side to it. To me, it's like, you take this away and make it work. But probably not. It's that when it comes down to it, my passion for what I do is the music. And this, I love the organization side. I love the people side of my business, having to do with that. But the managing of an organization is not my passion. Yeah. When what I wanted to do is I wanted to open scores of Bach and Brahms and spend time with that, learning the music, and then share it with musicians and make sure again that it goes all the way to the concert. But so that's part of. We've been successful with that. We've been really successful at not being bogged down with a difficult founder. And I've had just 2 executive directors in 16 years. As you mentioned, I was the executive director de facto at first, and then. How
many years did you serve in that role?
I would say 4.
Yeah, 4 years.
4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then we had 1 or 2 staff supporting, and at some point, I had a part-time person which was really talented, and I figure out a way to get enough money so that she could quit her part-time thing and become the executive director. Yeah. At that point, she was not experienced much, and at that point she had the title of executive director. I still was running
Yeah.
much of it.
And she
through-
was also very intellectually curious.
Yes.
She wanted to learn how to be
Yeah.
better as well.
And through the years, she really was able to pick up more and more of things.
Yeah.
But that relationship still remained the same, you know, to the point that she took a lot of the responsibilities. But as far as really taking real leadership, you know, would have been with the board or with me,
Yeah.
with telling me, Antoine, no, this is not the way that this business works.
Right.
You know, it
And
was just
your
not her
new
place.
executive director will tell you
And
that?
yes, exactly. And
Yeah.
now it's a completely different thing. And when we recruited somebody that was in the business of running orchestras for years, and that person, you know, came in, and then, you know, you don't come to staff meeting. You know, it just. And again,
yeah.
you know, for me it was great
Yeah,
because you know, and both of them were fantastic people, they were a time of it, and there is no. You know, there's growth that could have happened, but
how tough-
my experience though is that it was really kind of organic and great, because it went from really little me, then growing somebody into this role, and at some point that person was ready to just move on to something else, and then we were able at this point again to recruit something. We had resources to recruit somebody that had quite a bit of experience.
At the very beginning, Antoine, where was the point where, you know, how long did it take before you felt, oh yeah, this is going to make it? You know, this is, you know, how many years or how long was it that you struggled for a while?
Yeah, so you know, people ask me that from time to time, and I never feel that.
You thought from the beginning this is going to be something.
No, well, maybe I didn't understand your question, but I
Okay.
never feel like we're not struggling anymore.
Oh, you're still struggling.
You know.
I get it.
No,
Yeah.
but it's not true that we're struggling.
Yeah.
But
I understand what you're saying. though, yeah.
I'm not at the point. I've never kind of sat back and say, wow, you know, we made it.
Yeah.
You know, we are still, from the beginning I had a vision of what I wanted to be, you know, and it did morphed quite a bit through the years.
Yeah.
But still, you know, the big vision of having a super high quality chamber orchestra for the city of Houston was there and is there. It's a simple idea, but you need to carry it. And so I'm not there yet. I mean, I'm still working really hard every day to keep bringing more people to our art form, to getting more work for our musicians so that we can recruit and retain really the best in the country. And I think our long-term vision is really to be a leader in the country, which we have the seeds for that, and we're starting to be getting recognized and you know, doing things that could mean that we could claim that, but it's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
And so that answer is, you know, we don't get what we want, and that's, you know, that may be another chapter for the book, is you will not get what you want. It's good to want things.
But let me press this a little bit long. I mean, the first 1 or 2 or 3 years, were they especially tough? Or were you just busy with other things, so it didn't matter that much?
No, I mean, it's always difficult, and there are steps where, you know, you start feeling great about stuff.
Yeah.
And those steps, to me, again, they relate to my executive directors. You know, when at some point I was able to get that person in full time, and being able to say, you know, I'm not by myself running this thing. That was a big step. And I'm telling you, you know that because you were there early on. But I did everything. I mean, I knew the guy at the bulk window of the post office downtown, because I sorted that mail by myself on the table. I mean, we just entered the address, and you know that, and I knew kind of back then on the small organization, you know. No, I mean, nobody does. It's not the way that, you know. Of course, that's not the way that it's done.
What I do remember though is that you guys tried to do everything right. You tried to see how other nonprofits were doing it. You're very open to how you change the way you do things, especially in raising money. You know, how do we raise money? How do we do the right things? I remember in terms of youth education, you're willing to go wherever, whenever. I mean, you guys purposefully tried to do everything right. I think that was unusual. And did you get a sense at that time that you guys were unusual in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, and yeah, and that is, I think, this combination of my interest for the music communication, but also my, some of it is just talent, but interest as well for the business side of things. And I just have, the fair amount on the both side that I was able to carry that. Most musicians don't care enough about, as they should. I mean, not everybody,
Right.
At some point, not everybody needs to have that.
Well, and I think in other types of nonprofits, it's the same thing. With you, it's the musicianship. In other nonprofits, is I need to serve the people, and they don't think about running the organization, or creating of the organization. Let's talk about sort of the creation of your first board. For so many nonprofits, as you know, the board is very, very important.
Yeah.
Who's going to be on the board? Are they going to raise enough money? How did you sort of create that first board?
The first board was really friends. That's as it should be, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's another way.
Yeah.
You get people that wants to help, and then somehow pretty early on, I remember on early board meetings, somebody that came to a concert and got to say hi after the concert, and we just wanted to have people to outside of our little circle of friends.
Yeah.
But that really early on, I remember it was scary. But at some point, that person was like, "Oh, I'm calling it quit." And you have 4 person on your board, and this is the only person that is not your friend or neighbor. And it's like, I just don't want to do meetings. And I didn't allow him. I said, "No, you have to stay for a little bit." But that's really how it came, and and that is the part where it really helped to have 4 founding members, because we were able to pull on friends, not just my friends, but these founding members' friends as well. And Jonathan and Anna were really, really important in that. It came from their community. We had the little Rice community and the teachers and the things. We had the community of the other founding member, which is my wife now, who is an attorney, and little business community on this side.
Yep.
And because it's really started as a family affair with 2 couples, my wife and I, and Jonathan and Anna, which were. But Jonathan and I also had a church community that they were really involved with, and pulling with these things, that was enough to get it going. And then, we ran into you, and we asked you to join the board, and this was kind of mid road.
Yeah.
Little by little, you get different type of people on your board.
Yeah.
But that is hard from day one to today.
Yeah.
It's just board recruitment and membership, and especially, I don't know, I guess it remains hard, but maybe it's easier if you get a museum of fine arts.
Board where everyone's hitting up, but then the next year rolls off and something new happens, right? It's sort of like a never-ending battle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Every once in a while it's smooth sailing, but not always, right?
Yeah.
When you think of your leadership experience at Mercury, ups and downs, when you think of some of the most positive and some of the hardest experiences, sort of what comes to mind for you?
I don't spend a lot of time thinking back. I think forward. But
well, maybe that's a good leadership lesson right there. Don't think back. Don't worry.
No, but when the harder things, it goes back to communication. But sometimes what's hard is dealing with people, and sometimes you have to tell things to people that they don't want to hear. Yeah. And then so that's hard, to have to say. To fire people, basically, it's hard, and that was something that I learned. I didn't do it well at first, and we don't have a lot of, we didn't have to do it a lot. It's very hard to fire people, isn't it? It is, and so that's hard. I remember, doing mistakes of just on conducting, and that has to do with, tough when you really do something not right, something that is really stupid, and you really look like a goof. It can be in rehearsal to say something that was. Yeah. And you have a bunch of professional musicians that are all super smart, and they kind of all look at you and like, what is that guy saying? And then you have to pedal on that, and that's really hard because you go home that night and you're like, or you do a mistake, in in performance it happens rarely, but you know, you happen to forget a repeat and you go on and have the orchestra follow you and the other one doesn't, and then it's like, and you have dancers on stage that it's not the music they expected to do, and I mean, you know, that happened to me once, and it was terrible.
Yeah.
And we made it, and people in the audience, you know, they didn't, it wasn't a complete crash.
Yeah.
But I mean, I put an orchestra of 40 people and a dance troupe of 10 to 15 in a really, really terrible situation for them to perform. And it was my role to just facilitate that. And I really failed for a stupid mistake of attention.
Wow.
But you know, what I took out from that is, you know, after I went in my room and cried for for a bit, was you know, it was just about preparation. In this case, it's preparation. Wow. You know, you need to be prepared when you show up in front of smart people.
And your mistakes are in front of people, which is sometimes harder, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was just pure, I mean, I was not prepared enough. I think that mistake could have been easily you know, avoided if I would have been just more prepared, hence I would have been more comfortable and more concentrated.
Yeah.
So that was difficult, and and maybe the good things is, you know, when I feel great about it is, you know, I feel great about great concerts.
Yeah.
Great rehearsals, you know, that makes you feel good about it, and then.
When I was on the board, Mercury went to perform in Paris.
Yes.
Was that a highlight for you guys? I mean, it must have been. It was a highlight during my tenure, certainly.
Yes, it was. That was such a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
And to be invited by, you know, one of the important theater in the Paris region to just have the whole orchestra coming for 5 performances, it was a fantastic experience. And that, exactly, that kind of things, you know, if I remember kind of things, that phone calls that you just hang on the phone and like, you know, and that was definitely one of it, you know, to be able to get the orchestra to Paris for 2 weeks like that. And, you know, then the other ones is, you know, it's when you, you know, when you get the news that a grant came in. Right. A good grant came in, or some,
that's sort of universal with nonprofits, isn't it? When the big grant comes in.
You know, it makes you feel great.
Yeah. All right, let me go to the Twitterverse and see what people are tweeting. Here's Luis Morales wants to know: is it ever acceptable for a leader to be vulnerable? Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I think it's, in my experience, it's necessary.
Yeah, right. I think so.
Yeah, because you cannot know everything, and if you try to, then that's where you lose them, because you're gonna. In my case, you know, you're working with an orchestra. If you start saying things that you just say them because you feel that you need to look smart or that you need to know this, it's so much worse, because they know, and so then they don't trust you anymore. Yeah. It's so much better to just say, oh well, didn't think of it that way. Let me think about it. Oh wow, what a stupid mistake I just did. Really, that's what it means. And sometimes, you know, you feel bad, but for the orchestra, it's so much better to know that, to have a relationship where truth is there.
Yeah, absolutely. Latrice wants to know, when you started your nonprofit with your friends, was it hard to not mix business with pleasure, or did you mix business with pleasure?
Well, we did, in a way that that we were friends and we would hang out all the time. It was before we had kids and we were just out of school, and we would, you know. But from day one, though, we were really wary into having professional relationships. Yeah. You know, I was doing all the business side of it. Yeah. As far as the music side, which they were providing along with just contacts, you know, this board member and these things, but I wore the hat of the executive director and didn't do anything with that. And when it came,
do you still go to the board meetings yourself?
Yes.
Antoine? Yeah. But the other people who helped start you don't go to the board meetings. Yeah.
Well, actually, one of the founding member, Anna, is still on the board. Okay. So she comes, and she's fantastic.
Yeah, she is.
It's great to have her on the board.
I remember when I joined the board, it was Anna, who is originally from Mexico, and then Deborah, who is originally from Puerto Rico, and then yourself. And I was like, I think I don't fit in here.
Right.
I don't have a sexy accent. What do I do? Right. So, Stacy McKenzie wants to know, what were some of the challenges in terms of board members who don't always agree with the direction, or did you have any challenges with board members who wanted to change the direction of the board?
I would say that you have to manage your board.
Yeah.
And you don't want to bring it to a point where you're at a board meeting and you just learn something about that.
Yeah.
There's been tough moments with board, and you and I had difficulties with when we were working together.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was a tough one, and we had some tough one with board members that were important and really dedicated and giving lots of money, and it never was on the artistic side. They were really supportive, but on some other sides, they were just having different directions, and we had to manage that, and that was terrible.
And
but
I think sometimes it's more of a disruptive board member, more than changing the direction, but just a disruption somehow.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And so, but this is not a problem anymore, but what I would say about that, though, is nowadays you cannot always avoid this, but the people that may have different things. The day before the board meeting, you call them and you let them know that this is it, and you tell them why, and you can really, it can really help. Now, they will still not agree, and they may still bring it to the board, and it becomes a board discussion. It's completely fine. But you don't want to be by surprise. You don't want for them to be surprised on stuff. And what people, on your board, what people you need to give the phone call on a given thing before the board meetings and after.
Yeah, very good.
But not everybody will always agree, and so that's okay.
So Michelle McClinton wants to know, what's the current budget for Mercury, and what is your 5-year goal?
So the current budget is 1.6 to 1.7 million. And we are just in the final step of doing a 4-year plans, which will bring us to closer to 3 million. So it's a big
jump.
It's a big jump. It's going to be a campaign of we'll have a big fundraising campaign through that, and in the 4 or 5 years we are expanding our artistic impact, but we also have a campaign to just build of cash reserve and endowment, so that
every nonprofit's dream, right, is always that cash reserve.
And we feel that it's something that we need to address now.
Now, this is an important thing, because people often think artistic organizations, they have the ticket sales, but when you think of your $1.6 million budget, how much of that comes from ticket sales?
Well, it's earned income is, earned income is about 30% of our, maybe a little less now.
See, that's probably surprising to people, right?
So we raise, ticket sales are a part of it. We have other earned income with contract with schools where we go to, which is not a big amount, but still. Yeah. And we also have contract like a corporation event. Corporation will hire us to. Bon, so we have other earned income source than just ticket sales, but it's less than 30%, and so we need to raise 70 to 80% of that 1.6 million every year, and that's where we're having having endowment, or at least a big cash reserve really frees you. But
when you think of that 30% ticket sales, so in 400,000 to 500,000 ticket sales, the rest, is it individual gifts, foundation gifts? I mean, how do you divide that up?
Yeah, so foundation, we have a few good foundation. We're not doing as good as we could probably. Yeah. But the Houston Endowment is a really strong supporter of us. And we have, several other of the big one in Houston. Yeah. We have, then we have government. City of Houston is actually really nice amount of money that we get from them. Little from the state, and we get a grant from the National Endowment from the Art.
That's nice.
From time to time. but that's not a big chunk. And then we have corporation. A lot of our corporate funding comes from board member and from our gala. So we'll get corporation kind of in that annual fundraiser, but mostly is individual donors. That's really our butter and bread, and that's people that buys tickets, and then you bring them up in the pipeline. You get them too.
Ashley Yarborough wants to know, what's the biggest change that's occurred between your original vision and how it is now at Mercury? That's a good question.
Yeah, and the really the true answer to that is something that is really artistic, and it's something. The vision of having a really high-level orchestra that really serves the city and that has recognition nationally is there, and that doesn't change. One big change that we did is that we were really specializing in Baroque music.
It was Mercury Baroque.
Yeah, it was Mercury Baroque, and that's music from the 18th century, Bach, Vivaldi, Handel, Rameau, and we're playing that again with the period instruments, and we really had a big focus on that. And that, I thought that would be it. I thought that would be our repertoire. And as we kind of grew and we realized that we were leaving, that we wanted artistically to do more than that, and also that we were leaving perhaps opportunities off the table by just being too much of a niche. And so we dropped that and we kept the period instruments, but we get to play repertoire from, again, from the Baroque, even Renaissance, all the way though now to tango. So next week we have a concert that is half Baroque,
You're not doing Star
half
Wars
tango.
music or anything at
No,
this point?
no, and I don't see that, but we could. Actually, we sometimes we actually, so it's not a big change. It's really an artistic change which just opened up a little bit our field of opportunity.
Yeah, very good. Let's see. So Crystal Robinson wants to know, at what age did you form an interest in music? Is this like 1 year old you formed in the womb?
I guess so. I mean, I
maybe?
grew up with that. I had trombone player warming up next to my bedroom when I was a teenager.
Did you really?
Oh yeah, I know all those licks but I do remember one time when I was a teenager and it was peer pressure. I had a little older friends like, what do you want to do when you grow up? And I'm like, well, I don't know. Don't you want to be a musician? Like I said, I'll be a musician.
Oh wow. Okay.
But that was when I was a teenager, so I knew at 13 years old that's what I wanted to do.
So Ruth Gatumbi wants to know, how did you tackle financial challenges and fundraising when you were just the team of 4 friends? Sort of like, what was your first step in terms of how do we raise money?
Let's see. I remember our first fiscal year was 15,000. So we started with...
That was your first budget, 15,000?
Yeah, and how we got there, even that, I don't know. But it remained the same. But I will say that the city of Houston, back then it was, through the Houston Arts Alliance, was really, really great for us. Maybe not the first year when we were there, but inside 3 years we got into their incubator program, and they really helped us fund more staff and having an office, and they were instrumental into getting us. And I think that's a program that still exists, the incubator program, but we got in there and it really helped us kind of going to the next level. But at first, fundraising was some friends. One connection that had a friend that was VP at El Paso back then, who was able to just do a $5,000 contribution, but for us it was the world. And you take that and little more board there and there, and you do a fundraiser at your home, and little by little you add it up. Then you do some school programs, and little by little.
Marceline Champion wants to know, how do you collaborate? You talked about collaboration with other artistic nonprofits. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Because you've done quite a bit over the years. So pick one and tell us a little bit about it.
Let's see, what are we doing? An easy one for us to collaborate with is just dance company, because we don't dance, and a lot of our repertoire, will ask for dance. We have operas that have dance to it, and I love contemporary dance, and I love dance in general, and so we have collaborated with several dance companies through the years. I would say that one of the biggest collaboration that we did was this Romeo and Juliet. It was a new ballet on a score of Vivaldi that I put together, and Dominic Walsh, with his Dominic Walsh in his theater, which is not anymore, did the choreography. And it was a big project that we did two or three times even, that had great success in the city. It was really beautiful. And this was the biggest collaboration, full-blown collaboration. We had our books were open and how much money this costs and who's going to take this and how much we're going to share the tickets. This is difficult. And frankly, I don't necessarily recommend it. I collaborate a lot with other artists, but a clear kind of who's buying what you're providing is great. You know, I need a dance company. I'm going to hire Met Dance Company, and they're going to give me a great deal, and they may not cover all their costs, and we'll collaborate on the artistic level. I want to see what it is. Like, or when we did the Armide, which was the thing that we brought to Paris, you know, we just hired this great collaborator, this great director, and he came here, and then he hired us, and we brought it over. And so I would say that it's hard to collaborate with open books, especially if you get a little bigger and collaborate.
It's good for the audience, but it's hard internally.
Well, for the audience, it doesn't. I mean, it is, but it's. I don't want to sound too negative with this, because we still always are looking at, and we do collaborate with other. We collaborate with Houston Symphony when they need, this or this, and with the opera and Back Society.
It's just work. You have
to work. But it's just that what you want to do is you want to have clear parameter of what the collaboration is going to be. And just to put a show together as two different organizations, that's hard.
And two artistic directors.
Two artistic directors and two boards and two, that's...
one of the questions that I'll often ask is, when you look around and you see other nonprofits that are similar to you, I mean, when you look around here in Houston, there are so many young and small and growing artistic organizations. Are there some that you look around and think, man, they're doing things right? There's good stuff happening. Who do you see doing really good stuff?
Well, I think that our big institutions are doing really great stuff. So when you look at the Houston Symphony and at the Museum of Fine Arts and at Houston Grand Opera, Houston Ballet, I mean, these guys are really doing great stuff.
They're well-oiled machines, though, aren't they?
They know what they do, and they have great artists. They present great art, and they're really great programs to be accessible. And so that's we're lucky, because it's not the case in every big city.
That's right.
And we have a good set of really competent.
Well, even in most cities, they don't have as many as we do in terms of having the diversity of ballet, opera, symphony, and so forth, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that's wonderful. On the smaller organization, it's just hard, and you need to keep at it. You need to keep at it. It's so hard for so long, And
do you see some, and you don't have to name names, but do you ever once in a while see an artistic group that you think, wow, they have great potential, but they're not doing things right?
Yeah, and well, and there's one thing, a little pet peeve on the art side. One thing. I mean, it's fantastic to have your vision. You need to have your vision, and you should have it. But this whole concept of deserving something. This city deserve Shakespeare theater. A theater that just do, or even like this city deserve a Pearl Orchestra. And I cannot believe that this city is not willing to support X dance company. Or theater company. They are so great. What's wrong with this city? And that is something that I hear, because it's hard, and they have talented people,
But the city is willing. The city is willing to support.
Yeah.
You need to figure out how to make it happen.
You need to figure out how to make it happen, and then sometimes it's hard. I mean, for me it wasn't, but it's not all artists that it aligned. For me, the commercial side and the artistic side aligned well, But if it doesn't, because what you do, really few people like it. I mean, then you need to accept that. You need to maybe work against the current to get more people to like it. But it's completely fine to do things that are really niche. And I really encourage artists to do that. But the expectation needs to be, well, we're doing this for a small group of people, and then I cannot expect this and this to be supported for that. And so that's it's a hard thing for artists.
Yeah.
And for arts company is how do you kind of balance these sometimes competing idea. And for me, and that's the way that I think one, depending of their goals. If their goals is to play string quartet in a bar with 50 people listening to it 4 times a year, that's a fantastic goal. But if your goal is to be one of the greater orchestra in the country, then you have different approach to that. And I'm really lucky to that. In our portfolio of activity, they are not all Vivaldi's Four Seasons. I get to pick things that are much more obscure and more dearer to my and I just build the season so that I get things for me. I get things for sometimes for the audience, sometimes for musicians, and
just tell me when you're going to do Star Wars so I can count. Antoine, final couple questions. Work-life balance. Do you have a work-life balance? I talk to many leaders that say absolutely not, but what do you think?
Yeah. Yes,
You
I
do.
would say. But
you're always thinking about Mercury music.
But this is
aren't
my
you?
passion. See, often, I'm thinking, so what do I want to do if I'm on vacation? And really what I want to do is things that I don't feel I have enough time, during the years, opening scores and learning music and listening to music and practicing myself.
Yeah.
And so what I want to do is my work.
Yeah.
So that it doesn't bother me that I don't
That's
have
the difference,
vacation,
though, right?
vacation.
Yeah, you may not have work-life balance, but it's your choice, and it's because you love the work part.
Yeah, exactly. And then, frankly, I spend a fair amount of time staying healthy.
Yeah.
I work out, yoga, I eat well, and that's important. I do physical things. We're musicians, I'm a conductor, and so the physical part of it, but that's really help. I think it's part of work-life balance, I don't get bogged down because I'm, my brain gets oxygen
And 3 kids, and how old are your kids?
10, 11, and 12.
Amazing.
So that takes
takes
a lot of time, and sometimes I wish I would be able to spend more time with them, but I have my priorities and I take the time. I take the time with them.
Your favorite restaurant in Houston?
Oh yeah, my favorite. Oh, I have a great friend. He used to have Trinity, and he is not there anymore. We did some wonderful collaboration, but they closed it down. But now he has a new joint. It's called FM Burger, and it's completely different. Trinity was like really high-end dining. And now it's
Little Food. I remember Trinity being Little Food.
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan. But,
then FM Burgers you should try because this is a
it's big
fantastic.
food? Yeah.
Well, it's burgers that are done by a really great chef, and he spins things around, and it's a great location to. In the Heights, it's a park, not a park, but outside.
Is that your favorite restaurant now, FM Burger?
Well, I'm going to go for that.
You're going to go with FM Burger.
I don't eat in restaurants a lot.
Very good. And is there a little place, our final question, is there a place in Houston that not a lot of people know about that's one of your favorite places in general?
Well, there's a little wine bar on my street. And I live on Sunset Boulevard by Rice University.
Yeah.
And
what's the name of the wine bar?
It's called Simone on Sunset. And my daughter's name is Simone. And it's really in the Rice Village, but it's a little thing. It's 2 blocks from my house. And it's a nice little selection of food and wine. And so it's really nice to be able to walk on Sunset.
Very good.
Beautiful trees and beautiful house.
Next time you're going, I'll bring the whole class. We'll come over.
Well, it's a small place.
You'll buy us all a wine, though, if we come?
Sure.
Good. Antoine Plante, who's the artistic director and founder of Mercury Baroque. Thank you so much, Antoine, for being here.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure.
That's it for tonight. We'll see you next time here on the Nonprofit Leadership Studio. Till then, keep up the good work.